I wanted to ask a question about proof of reserves. So following the collapse of FTX, proof of reserves gained a lot of attention. Can you talk about, what that is as a concept, how it increases transparency and security for the end user?
And so FTX's collapse, while it might seem like an indictment of the technology of blockchains and cryptographic systems, it is not an indictment of that at all. And what proof of reserves is proof of reserves is a very specific implementation of cryptographic truth and cryptographic systems that would have completely solved FTX, but it would have also solved multiple bank collapses and other collapses, basically by creating transparency. So what proof of reserves does is it basically takes the balance sheet of an institution or an entity, and it represents that balance sheet on chain. And then representing that balance sheet on chain, it proves that there's a certain level of assets and a certain configuration or mix of assets of certain types. And so the reason the whole FTX happened was the FTX issue happened was because there was a bank run on FTX when people found out that a large percentage of FTX's balance sheet, which was backing their deposits, was not in US dollar stablecoins or Bitcoins, but it was in FTX's own token. What proof of reserves would have done if it was implemented from the very beginning of FTX's life is it would have cryptographically proven, it would have pulled data from FTX's back end, and it would have proven to everybody that FTX is collateralized with dollars, US dollar stablecoins or Bitcoins or some combination. And then if FTX decided to start changing that mix on the balance sheet and decided to start making 10% of that FTT tokens instead of the other assets, well, everyone would have found out about that in seconds, not in days or weeks and months or years, but seconds. And then there would have been a discussion with their user base, and their user base would have said, I don't want to use you if you make your deposits backed by your own token. And then FTX would have been faced with a choice, and it would have either said, okay, users, if you don't like this, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make sure I'm backed by Ether, Bitcoin, and dollars, and so you don't need to worry. And the users would have stayed, or FTX would have made the decision, I don't really care what you think. You can leave, user. I'm going to back myself with my own token, and the users that want to stay can stay. But in both of those cases, because of the transparency of proof of reserves, you would have never had a bank run, because there would have been no surprising news to create a bank run of any kind. And so what proof of reserves really does is it uses cryptographic systems, encryption, to prove things that allow counterparties to do risk management. In the case of proof of reserves, it's really risk management about the balance sheet that an institution is using. Proof of reserves is a very exciting thing, something we launched into production over 2 years ago. It was getting some adoption before FTX, but after FTX, adoption went absolutely vertical. And there's other forms of proof of that we're working on, proof of liability, proof of solvency, proof of all kinds of other aspects of financial counterparties that also allow greater degrees of risk management. And I think that these proof of things will basically eventually differentiate counterparties such that you would go with a counterparty where you knew they were solvent second by second by second, instead of a counterparty that you had to wait for an annual audit by a person that could be gamed or could be mismanaged, like with Enron or someone else.